Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. My name is Mike Chisholm. As always, I will be your excited, enthusiastic host as we have a conversation in the world of mental wellness, men's mental wellness, but also mental wellness in general. And hopefully out of these conversations, anybody who views or listens to this broadcast will be able to take something from it and apply it to their daily lives, or at least overlay and take a look at their daily lives and how we're coping in this crazy world. He Changed It is going very well. Thank you to everybody who has downloaded the app and checked it out already. If you haven't yet, please download it. HeChangedIt.com has all of the deets for that, but we're in both app stores. And if you haven't shared the podcast yet, we would invite you to like, subscribe, and share heCast. We appreciate every response that we've been getting and how many people's lives have been changed. Speaking of changing lives, the gal I'm about to talk to today and have a conversation with is somebody that I can say has helped to change my life. We haven't gone into a lot of the spiritual stuff yet on this podcast. We've skirted around. We've had a lot of guests talk about things like meditation or other types of ways to ignite that spiritual self, that soul self, if you want to call it that. But we haven't really focused on it. Well, the gal that's going to be on here today is someone who has taught me about this, has really been able to dumb down, for lack of a better term, some of the different spiritual ideas, techniques, so, I mean, you may hear people talk about things like Nidra yoga or meditation or sound therapy and things like this and wonder, what the fuck is this stuff? Here's a gal who has zero condescension in telling us how that works. In fact, she has built a business model around showing people how to benefit from some of the techniques of this world. And I'm really excited that she has agreed to sit down and let me kind of pick her brain and talk about this. And I know for a fact that some of this information is going to benefit some people. So without further ado, Alisa Farr, thank you for taking time out of your day to be on heCast today. You are allowing me to utilize our personal relationship for you to be on here, but I just appreciate your insights so much. And thank you for taking time to be here today.
Well, I'm so grateful to be here and, jumped at the chance to be able to spend time with the Chisholms. So
well, we appreciate that.
And all the amazing things that you guys are up to. So thank you for having me.
It's, we live in a world right now where I always like to call it the pressure valve. A lot of our pressure valves are just at full right now, and we need to do a release. And many people's, in my opinion, especially men out there, many men's spiritual sides are withered, are dead, or if they're a muscle, they're atrophied, whatever metaphor you want to use. Mm-hmm. You live in a world where you help to pump those tires. Yeah. And you do it in all sorts of ways. So I'm just going to ask you straight up first, like we talk about meditation all the time, things like that. In your viewpoint, what is meditation and what are the benefits of it? Well,
meditation is, first of all, it's a practice. It's not just something you can do once. I often refer to many of the practices that we incorporate into our company as a practice because it's like going to the gym. You can't go and lift, a weight once and be fit. You need to do it ongoing to see the benefits of it. So right. Meditation is, in my own words, is whatever takes you to a time and space, place where time and space and place don't exist.
Wow.
So that can be it could be gardening. Mm-hmm. It could be running. Mm-hmm. It could be, something that's more structured, like a yoga nidra. It could be a seated meditation where, you're just listening potentially to music, sitting in silence. It can be a vast array of things. But for me, meditation really is whatever takes you away from time, space, and place.
It's funny how you talk about like gardening, something like that. My wife and I got a real kick out of the latest Pixar movie. It's called Soul, and it talks about some of these things. And one of the concepts in the movie is being in the zone. and how when you get into the zone in something, and in that movie, they use the example through music. A piano player just starts going and he goes into this different place. And I get like that when we do these conversations. I get that when I'm sometimes singing or playing a video game or something like that, where I kind of just get into the zone and I get into this different place. Is that what you're talking about when you say somebody gardening might be able to use that as sort of a version of meditation?
Absolutely. It can be something that you enjoy, right? It's not the mindlessness of something that's repetitive, but it is something that brings joy, right? So it has to be an activity and it doesn't even have to be like, it's important for us to be able to shut off. So even reading, even those kinds of things where we're can engage our brain, we need to be able to get to a place where we're beyond that. So it needs to be something that we enjoy, that we feel passionate about, feel like if it's missing in our life, there's something missing, right? So whether that's a creative outlet for painting, or the gardening or whatever
Runners, athletic?
Absolutely.
Sure.
It can be running. For a lot of people, they have a passion for that. And I did once upon a time until my body was saying to me no more.
I bow down to anybody who's got a passion for that.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I've never been able to find the joy in running. Right. I wish I could. I honestly do, because when I hear people talking about it and how it fulfills them on a level that's way deeper than just an athletic endeavor, it's something more, and that something more some people would label as spiritual. Yeah. Some people who are more scientific based would say, oh no, well, the brain's just releasing these chemicals and this is happening and that's happening and you're not thinking about certain things, whatever. Yeah. It sounds like the same thing on the different side of the coin, I guess. But
for sure.
But and I've been told that there's no such thing as a bad meditation.
No, there isn't. There's always something that you learn, right? So, you can, I've been meditating for years, and for me, one of my favorites is Yoga Nidra, and which is really a very, very passive form of meditation.
It's also a passive version of yoga. I think in the like, people think about yoga, they think about hot yoga, getting in these crazy positions, stretching and all that. What's the difference between like that yoga that I think people would stereotype and Yoga Nidra? So
yoga simply means union, right? So that's the actual definition of the word yoga. And that's often, when we talk about it's union of spirit and body. Okay. Yoga Nidra translates to sleep. So Yoga Nidra is yogic. It's a union of sleep and, your physical body, essentially. So the goal of Yoga Nidra itself is to allow the body to relax. And often when you're beginning to practice, and even seasoned practitioners, practicers, all of those things.
Practicers, yeah.
Those of us who do it. The idea is to have a form of awareness while the body is in deeply relaxed state. So we can talk about brainwaves and all the things that happen, but it is a very passive practice, and it is, it's very different when people talk, like when I say that I facilitate Yoga Nidra, that I'm an advanced practitioner or whatever, terminology that gets used. Yeah. People are like, I don't bend. Like, right. Perfect. You don't have to. The physical. They immediately think physical. And yoga can be, there is all kinds of forms of yoga. When I did my teacher training years ago, even our yoga teachers were like, you can have yoga where like sticking your hand up over your head and for as long as possible, that can be considered yoga. Right. So it's a pretty broad term. Yeah. But Yoga Nidra specifically is really about deep relaxation and eventually about creating a very heightened sense of awareness, but not in a way that is, paranoid, right? Yeah. In a way that just facilitates deep relaxation and restoration to the body. A relaxed awareness. Mm-hmm. So I and I'm going to be the guy asking these questions here, because there are many guys who hear this and are like, oh, okay, and now they're starting to maybe like I was. Yeah. I didn't have any definitions of these things, and now I have a much clearer definition, in part to people like you being in my life and showing me this stuff. I want to go back. You said when I started meditating years ago. Yeah. So let's go back to that. What made you start meditating, and what are the net benefits to you for meditating? So I started meditation about 7 years ago or so, maybe a little.
But in your adult life, it's not like you were brought up by granola chewing whatever that made you do that your whole life.
My dad was a cop.
Okay.
And my mom was, she worked and she stayed at home. So she, fluxed back and forth between the two of those things. And so it was not a meditation household.
Right.
Not at all. So I ended up finding it going through, life happens, right?
Sure.
So we're going through things and I needed to find a way to essentially to self-regulate it. I needed a way to find calm. And, and there was a couple of people that popped into my world and, the idea of meditation had cropped up. So my first meditation was literally laying down in semi-prone, listening to nothing but silence. And trying to find a way through my thoughts and,
So your brain was going a million miles a minute because of life stresses, shit going on in the background.
Absolutely.
And your mind would not
shut
calm.
up.
Gotcha.
Just wouldn't, it wouldn't shut up. And it felt like I was within, a clusterfuck of everything. And I needed to find a way through because, at that point in time, when you're having all of these racing thoughts and you don't understand that you don't have to believe every thought that you have. Like we literally have, I've heard statistics that say up to 80,000 thoughts per day.
Yes.
And 70% of those are not beneficial.
They're debris.
They're bullshit.
Or even,
right? It's just there is so much garbage that floats around in our head. And so not that I knew that at that point in time, I just knew that I felt like I was drowning.
You needed something, you didn't know what you needed. Was meditation the first thing you reached out for?
Yeah, it was actually. Wow. Yeah, it was. And I took to it fairly quickly. And then I started incorporating different things into my practice. And it shifted a little bit. And, sometimes I would do a guided meditation. So like just finding something on YouTube. And then eventually moving into the bowls that we use for our sound therapy. And then clinical hypnotherapy was something that I certified in, and yoga nidra, yoga. So I started, once you go down the path.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole that has rabbit holes to rabbit holes.
But everything is. Everything's a rabbit hole. And when you get into CrossFit, my God, that's a huge rabbit hole. Like you talked about running earlier, that's a rabbit hole too. Like any practice that you get into is a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
This one here is one that can really be beneficial to people. And I would say, I don't know, in the life, we talk about the different ways that we can be healthy. Our physical health, our emotional health, spiritual health, I think, is the thing that we don't talk about enough. Except for the fact that yoga is exploding. Meditation is exploding. All of these things are the awareness that we're getting in North America. In my opinion, it's very different than when we were kids. I
don't even know if I'd heard the word meditation. Sorry to interrupt you.
Right, no.
It's like, I wouldn't have known.
Right? You think about Buddha. Like when I was growing up, if somebody said meditation, I would have thought about Buddha sitting there, big fat jolly man sitting there with his eyes closed. That's what I would have thought about. It wouldn't have even occurred to me that this is something that might be a tool that can help me in all of the other areas of my life, relationships, my mentality, how I handle stress, all of these types of things. I did not realize that I could get a handle on just through a practice like this.
Yeah.
And I think that, many people have heard about it, but they have no idea how to access it. I think that there's a lot of people who try it and their mind, as you know, when you meditate, especially when you're new at it, right? And you do it for 10 minutes or whatever. You're like, that I was terrible at that because my mind wouldn't shut up.
Right.
No, there's no such thing as a bad meditation. Like it's such a powerful thing that many people don't go much past that first step.
Right. And it, like I said before, it's a practice, right?
Yeah.
So it's, you don't pick up a hockey stick and get good at, that puck handling right out of the gate, right? So it is something, but there is no such thing as a bad meditation. And like I was alluding to before, for somebody who's practiced this for, a number of years, and I'm certainly not the most practiced meditator in the world by any stretch. I have moments where I lay down to go do my practice and get up and I'm like, fuck it, I just can't do this right now.
Right.
And I get up and I move and it's like, okay, so that's where I'm at today. And that's okay.
Yes.
Today, that's okay that's where I'm at.
Yes.
I recognize that there's a lot happening. And so, if I'm conscious enough and not caught up in myself to do another something that nourishes me, then I can do that or just move on with the day. And today's just going to be what it is. And
Sure.
Tomorrow's a new day, right?
But we also don't even take into account that sometimes if that does happen, the act of still doing that, to be still, even if you don't feel like you're turned your mind off, that act actually still did help you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know?
And it's creating a new neural pathway, really,
Yes.
essentially is what it's doing. So,
And I love this stuff. This is the stuff like the brain chemistry part of it, because people think it's really woo woo, but it's a lot more scientific than many people would realize.
yeah.
You know,
For sure it
and I
is.
want to get into that with the sound. So,
Yeah.
my wife and I have been to and seen the benefit of some of the things that you do. And you've got an in-person practice, obviously, but with COVID, you've also had to pivot and you've created an online practice. And instead of, I don't know if you call it a modality or techniques or whatever you want to call
Whatever
it,
word.
program. And you have incorporated sound into a meditation experience. And it has, for me, done wonders for my mental state. And I want to dive into that a little bit with you, because I know you've done programs with kids that are so successful to the point where adults are saying, okay, do something for adults because it's resonating with them as well.
Yeah.
When did sound become part of your spiritual practice? And how? How did that happen? Was it a mistake? Was it a...
There are no mistakes. So sound was introduced to me, probably close to 6 years ago.
Okay. 2015-ish.
And, yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. Yep. I'm getting really fuzzy with time.
I know time becomes, I like
to
to say as we get older, time becomes slippery.
Yeah, it is. So I think it was about 6 years ago that I first walked into a store in the Rockies that had bowls, these crystal bowls. So we often think of singing bowls as like the little Tibetan bowls, the metal ones.
100%.
People tone them and they're great. For me, they feel like nails on a chalkboard, but it doesn't mean that that's not, that's just me personally. So when somebody said singing bowls, I was kind of like, okay. I'll give it, So walked into the store and it was completely different. It was crystal bowls, but not just, the frosted crystal bowl, like white kind of that we often think about as a crystal singing bowl, but these were alchemy bowls, which were crystal with the addition of alchemy. So that could have been anything from rose quartz to charcoal to frankincense. There's a vast array, and also
made into the physical bowl, like what the bowl is made of.
Made with the bowl, right? So I walked in and I was like, wow, this is really beautiful. But there was something that happened in my body that was like, oh, this really feels like home.
Wow.
And I heard the lady that was working in the store, she played the bowl a little bit and I was, hooked.
Before I'm going to pause right there because I think we've just kind of stumbled upon a feeling of what meditation can bring to people.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me personally, one of the things that, and again, it's still fairly gateway for me. I'm still pretty new compared to many people out there. But what you just described, meditation for me helps me clear away the shit and realize what my voice is, and also that I listen to my voice. Like I like feelings like that when you walked in there and something resonated for you. For me, I listen to that voice more often since I started meditating.
And that's one of the great benefits of it,
right,
is that you really do get into the place of nothing. Right. It's a place of nothing. So when you get into that zone, or whatever term you want to use,
sure,
you are connected to the very essence of who you are.
Right.
Where you feel a sense of unity, a sense of wholeness. We talk about manifestation, but when you get into that place of no thing,
yes,
you want no thing. You desire no thing because everything is perfect as it is.
Yes.
And the more you practice meditation and the more you can get into that space and clear away the clutter, and our minds are our minds, like they're there to do a job and they serve us.
Yes.
at the same time, they're filled with a lot of things. So the more you can go into that space and get into that practice, the more you get to kind of clear away the clutter. You know, it's sort of like, what's that I think it's Marie Kondo.
Does it spark joy? My wife and I use that shorthand all the time now.
Meditation is like doing that for your brain, right?
I love
it's doing that for your body and your brain. And you every time you go in, you come out with a little bit more of that in your waking everyday life.
So you meet somebody, you have an opportunity, like you went into this store. And suddenly there's an extra sort of awareness where you hear yourself going, oh, this is a pathway. This is something I should pay attention to. Mm-hmm. Whereas many times we're just kind of, going through the motions and that stuff doesn't even make us aware. We just, we're blind. So you go into this store and you feel at home suddenly. You suddenly feel some sort of a connection there. Mm-hmm. And what happened next?
I brought my husband in.
Yeah.
And he was like, wow, those are nice flower pots. and, and until he heard them. And then he was like, holy shit.
And hubby's in construction. And it's not like hubby's a granola cruncher guy either.
No, he's my husband's like a guy's guy. Like he's as dude as a dude gets, right? Like he's soft and he's kind and he's wonderful. I mean, I could gush about him every day for hours. But he's a carpenter, beer drinking, mischievous, impish, like great sense of humor. Just he's a great guy. Yeah. But he certainly is not the he didn't grow up in the granola hippie, whatever my parents would probably describe it as, environment.
So he's seeing these flower pots.
And so he's seeing these flower pots and he's like, wow, they're nice. Holy shit, they're fucking expensive. And then he heard them. And then he came to this. So this store would put on what they called sound baths. And I was like, well, let's just come with. And so, because happy wife, happy life.
100%.
He's like, sure, I'll do it. But he fell in love with them as well. He fell in love with them as much as I fell in love with them. And for him, it had, this visceral, experience for him as well. So how lucky am I to be, connected to these bowls and this sound. And my husband also loves them as well.
It really helps when your partner understands something that you love, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge thing.
So we very, very quickly accumulated a collection.
So what you were saying to the guys out there?
Yeah.
If your partner is into something and you open yourself up to become open to that thing or to fall in love with that thing that your partner's into, that's a good thing for relationships.
For sure. And you know what I would say too, as far as that goes, like if you're watching your partner flourish and grow, mm-hmm. and they're inviting you to experience some of that with them, and it may not be what floats your boat. It may not, but your partner does, right? Yeah. And you're witnessing them enjoy something, allow yourself to step outside your box and experience that with your partner. Yeah. And, see where it goes. And it may not be your favorite thing, but the time with your partner, is that ever a waste? No. So I think that there's benefit for sure to experiencing things outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. Sure. So Cam went along with you right away. Mm-hmm. And you got your first bowl, one bowl? 2 bowls? You went to a sound bath?
We started with one, and it quickly became 15 pieces within a very short period of time.
There's a lot of guys who play amateur guitar out there that know exactly what you're talking about because they end up collecting guitars. They end up so it goes deep.
Yeah.
Now, did you originally say, okay, I want to be a practitioner at this?
No, it was really just for my own, because there wasn't a lot of that happening in the Okanagan here. And so bringing them home was so that I could enjoy. Now, it's a very different experience to just lay and experience the bowls versus playing the bowls, but it was still deeply relaxing for me. And I wanted to be able to kind of pick up a bowl and do that whenever I wanted to. And then at one point I decided, I'm going to sort of step out because maybe people are going to think I'm a little weird, but I invited a girlfriend. I'm like, okay, so hey, I bought these bowls and they sing. And she's like, oh, okay. So she came, and then, people were curious, and I'm like, okay, so think about like when you're playing the crystal glasses, when people fill them with water.
Yep.
It's the same concept. It's the same, you spin, it makes a noise, it makes a sound. So the bowls are very much like that. And they're like, oh, so then they could kind of, grasp what it kind of looked like.
So what does it look like? What's going on when you start playing the different tones of different bowls? What's going on in our head? So if you're doing your thing where you're guiding me through kind of what to think, and you're kind of taking me on a journey, and you're playing these different tones, what's going on in my brain?
Well, I don't know what's going on in your brain, Mike, but
You do. That's a no truer answer has been spoken.
No, so I combine Yoga Nidra with the alchemy, which we call alchemy sound therapy.
Okay.
We call it alchemy sound because really we're starting in one sort of base area, and we're elevating, we're shifting and transforming. So, and the bowls themselves that we use, the most of them are alchemy bowls. So they have that crystal and the combination.
Yes.
So, crystal is an amplifier, right? As we know, that's why they're in computers and watches and all the things. And they're programmable. And stones and crystals, and this might be a little bit woo-woo for, some people, but they hold information. They hold a certain frequency with certain information. And so when you add something, say like rose quartz to a bowl, rose quartz is known to hold a frequency of love, right? So you add that into a crystal bowl, and they're together, so they are emanating this loving frequency. But, beyond just that, when we go through the Yoga Nidra, Yoga Nidra is a very systematic way of relaxing the body and the mind. Mm-hmm. And you get into a very deep place of relaxation, and there's less resistance to the experience of where the bowls want to take you. So we call them sound journeys, because often people they come back and they're just like, I don't know where the hell I just went, but it was fabulous.
Yes. It's an apt description for someone who's been in it. And that is a perfect description of the encounters that I've had as you've done that.
Yeah.
A journey is a great way of describing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when we're working with frequency, and the bowls are, they're tuned to a particular note. Like each bowl is different. I mean, you have the scale of notes, and I would never consider myself like a musician as far as like being classically trained. Once upon a time in my young years, I might have read music, but I don't anymore.
Right.
But they're tuned to an A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay. And when we talk about the energy centers of the body, our energy centers they hold a sound frequency, a note as well. Mm-hmm. So the bowls themselves, and I get really cautious when I say this, because when I say to you, a C note bowl C note is your base, your root chakra, your first energy center. Yep. And that's what it's working on. But you might not feel it there. Because you always have to take into account there's individuality for everything. Nobody is fitting in a shoebox here, right? So, but overall speaking, we've got these bowls that are attuned to a certain note. They hold a certain frequency. Mm-hmm. And when we're using them, I've got a bowl here to show you. So this is a practitioner's bowl because it has a handle. So when we tone, I try not to do this too loud.
I think we're good.
I just don't want to scare the microphones. So, and this bowl in particular will resonate for a really, really long time. This bowl in particular is actually a sacral chakra bowl, or a second energy center. Okay. And so I could say to you, this is going to help with your second energy center. But you might feel it somewhere different. You might not feel it at all. It doesn't mean that it's not working, because frequency, we're impacted by frequency no matter where we go, no matter what. We're all frequency, right? I think, I say most people know that, but not every circle.
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't know where I felt it. Like I can't pinpoint. I've heard about chakras, and I understand the basic principle. Mm-hmm. When I meditate, I can't kind of come out and say which part of me was affected.
Right.
The same thing when I go on a journey, when you take me on a journey, Alisa, I can't properly articulate which chakra, where it, I can only say that it impacted me like crazy.
Yeah. And you don't
and
have
I don't
to
know
have
how
an
to learn how
answer.
to translate that. Is that part of the rabbit hole where you actually can learn how to discern and translate where the journeys took you and what part of you it affects?
For sure. And again, like it's everybody's so unique and individual, right? That we can say all the notebooky kind of stuff that
Sure.
that can be said, but you, like I said, you're an individual. You're not a shoebox that's, supposed to fit in a certain way.
Right.
So the way you experience the bowls can be different every time you experience the bowls.
Yes.
Or a journey or a nidra or whatever it is. Or it could be like, I always see color. Or I can always feel the sensation, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It can be different. It can be the same. It can be different for you versus Candace, right?
My body heated up.
Yeah.
Physically.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Physically.
And we know that that's because the bowls and sound therapy work on the energy meridians of the body, right? So in Chinese medicine, we would we call them meridians, and they're like all the pathways in the body. In the yogic tradition, we refer to them as nadis, and so basically they're the same thing. And the bowls are about moving energy and freeing up energy and helping energy to move in places where there maybe the energy is feeling
there's some blockages,
slow, like we'll call it at least slow processing.
Sure.
You could call it a block if you want to. So we get people often. I had a client one time. He had a number of broken bones in his body over a course of a number of years. And in a session when we were done, he said, so he had a visual experience, but he also had a physical experience. And he said it was like daggers were being taken out of every single one of those bones and places that I had pain from being, broken.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't have pain. And that blew me away because, it was it was a visual. He's like, daggers are being pulled out of my body, but also he had no pain. So it helps to create flow within the body, and it helps to increase circulation. There's a lot of physiological stuff that's happening when you're introducing sound and frequency to the body,
right,
in conjunction. Like I said, I love to combine it with Yoga Nidra because it relaxes the body.
Yes.
And you have just this ability to be open and receive.
Right.
And
the direction that you give, direction might be the wrong word. The guidance that you give during that journey, kind of, not telling us how to feel is the wrong way of putting it, but kind of leading us down a path that is to clearing up some of those blockages or some of that, some of those slowdowns. I would say that my mind is definitely more open to that. And I don't know how does it link up with things like hypnotherapy and things like that? Because it's all about suggestion at that point.
For sure.
And you're suggesting us to go from where we are now to a better place.
Right. So, and that's a good way to describe it. So again, we go back to the busy mind and we talk about brain wave frequencies and being, awake and aware in our, beta brain waves where, you and I are having the conversation and we're learning things, it might be heightened and those frequencies might go a little faster if we're taking a test or whatever. Yeah. We drop into closing our eyes and our brain waves actually begin to slow down into alpha brain waves. And then we have theta and delta. And theta and delta are the extraordinarily regenerative brainwave places and spaces that allow for our bodies rest and digest, the parasympathetic nervous system, to engage. So we're starting to shut off the stress response. So both Yoga Nidra and hypnotherapy work in that regard.
Cool.
So I combine them quite frequently because they are very similar. While Yoga Nidra focuses really on balancing both hemispheres of the brain, hypnotherapy is more about activating the right side, that more, kind of creative, relaxed side that we would associate with like feminine energy.
Gotcha.
But they they really blend together quite beautifully. So using them both together in conjunction with the bowls, I mean, really, I play with frequency. That's what I do. I play with your brain frequency. I don't mean that in like a, sinister kind of way, but
not
it's
at all.
like, it's inviting you to really begin to listen, to really begin to become aware of your body, become aware of sensations, become aware of thoughts, and all of the stuff that I'm particularly, like, I'm a mom to 5 boys and 1 girl. And, I grew up I love my parents to bits and pieces, also raised in a household that was military police officer kind of environment, and an older brother who, if I cried, he was like, don't cry, you're tough.
Yeah.
Right. So there was a lot of that disconnect to my body.
Yeah.
And that happens for men. I see it in my own boys, even though I didn't purposefully do that. But there's this disconnect. So these practices invite you into your body, into the sensation, into the feelings, into the emotions, because we are perfectly designed to heal on our own. Our mind is extraordinarily powerful. And when we're in these really low, slow brainwave states, we're open to suggestions. That analytical portion of our mind, that logic, it's all kind of gone. Like, go on the park bench, play your iPad, do whatever you need to do, but don't bother us while we're over here playing.
Right.
Right?
And that's part of the thing, is that part of our brain takes over. And I mean, I'm a big Power of Now guy. And so that book really did a good job of opening up my eyes to how our brain, if we allow it to dominate, it will dominate.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so what this does is it kind of stops that, and it allows us to flex other muscles that are in as part of our psyche.
Yeah.
And I want to get into this because, like I said, it's going to go fast. We're going fast. I want to talk about the program that you developed, because I think about COVID, and I think about, like, let's go into stress and what this pivotal time in history has done for people's mental states. Now, you're focusing on the kids, but also the adults, and I can say that because you've helped me. Now, the program that you have built, first and foremost, let's do it now, and then we'll do it at the end as well. How do people find you, first and foremost? What's the best way to find you?
So our website, so our company name is Flourish Sound and Wellness. So we're on Instagram at Flourish Sound.
Flourish Sound.
We are www. Do you have to even say that anymore?
I don't know.
Like, is that?
You can.
Okay. So Flourish Sound and Wellness.ca.
Okay.
And on Facebook as Flourish Sound and Wellness as well. And I think that's probably, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Flourish is a great word.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as Alisa Farr, so you can find me there. But that's linked to our website and stuff as well.
Okay, so you've got a program that you developed for children, because in particular, COVID has done a lot of damage when it comes to anxiety and things like we talk about the pressure valve being full and we need a release.
Yeah.
So you developed a program for kids.
Yes. So, and that was really interesting timing, right? Because COVID happened, and it was like I think for a lot of us that are in the wellness industry, especially working one-on-one, it just really was like a guillotine. Yeah. And so I had to pivot. And at the same time, I was having friends who had kids, and my kids are essentially 25 down to 13.
Okay.
So, but I have friends that have got kids that are in younger, age categories than that. And they were getting in touch with me saying, is there something that you can do for my kids? Because there was so much unknown, and this was just so overwhelming for kids. Parents were losing jobs. It was the clusterfuck of clusterfucks, right?
Absolutely.
And,
chain reactions.
Totally. And parents are stressed. And if parents are stressed, kids are stressed.
Yeah. They're little sponges for that stuff.
And if parents aren't managing stress, in healthy ways, well, we're passing that down to our kids.
Yes.
So parents that I knew were asking for something. So I decided, I was running actually an adult program at the same time. So I decided to modify it to work with kids.
Right.
So I created this program. I ran a pilot program, and that's when I got the feedback from parents saying, holy shit, I needed this. Right. And it was great because it was parents get a little bit of education about how the brain waves work, how this, our stress and functions and how it affects the body, how the parasympathetic system works. I talk about the vagus nerve, like they get a little education in conjunction so that they can understand what's happening on a physiological level for their kids as well as for themselves. So, and then, these relaxation recordings that they were designed to be able to use at bedtime. So originally So
that's what it is an audio experience?
The program itself there's videos and slideshows, and there's a little bit of me chatting at you with you. And then there's the recordings. So there's 6 modules. So there's a recording for every module. And it's, when I developed from the pilot program, I created a 6-month program out of it. So people had a lot of time to really engage in the practice and really allow it to become part of the fibers of their, and like that muscle memory, right? So, and now I'm working on one for parents.
Is this something that parents could do with their kids?
Absolutely. Yep, for sure.
And what would and I know it's everybody's different, everybody's journey, everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
What are some of the net results of doing a program like this?
Well, I think I'm going to talk about it across the board because because if parents aren't, like I said, if we're not managing our own stress, it's affecting our kids. So learning about body awareness, learning to become more responsive and less reactive. So we don't have those knee-jerk reactions as frequently as we may once have.
That's a big thing right there.
It sure is.
Not reactive, but responsive.
Responsive. And, it's... the emotional awareness. I mean, I had parents come back to me and say, this opened up a new dialogue for my kids and I, because they were able to talk about what was happening within the body. Like when they were stressed, being able to say, I feel really XYZ and I feel it here, and saying, whether it's in their stomach or their neck or wherever it might be. So it created a new language for parents and kids to be able to use together, which was not something I expected. So these were things
where you love it when that happens?
It was very exciting actually. And so body awareness. So, and that translates into so many important things, because when we do have illness, if we're not connected to our body to be able to feel what's happening, then how do we translate that to a healthcare professional, right? The sensations in our body, becoming aware of that and becoming aware of whether or not, our thoughts are serving us or not serving us.
That's a big one.
There's massive amounts of benefits to taking time to being quiet and getting to know, like really it's reacquainting yourself with who you are, shutting out the noise of the world and teaching your kids to do that too. Because the statistics for kids and the mental health challenges that they're having are, like as a mom, it's just... it's gut-wrenching. Yeah. And as a parent, it doesn't even have to, but I'm a mom. So to see what's happening to our youth and knowing that if that isn't managed, it's translating into us as adults, into parents who are having kids, into adults who maybe don't want to have kids because maybe their childhood was really challenging. And they're like, I'm not going down that road. Yeah. So there's massive amounts of benefits to learning to connect with yourself again. Yeah. And knowing who you are, right? And you were talking about being able to know, these are my thoughts. This is what I believe. This is my feeling.
That's I asked what the net result is. That's a lot of good stuff that can come from these types of things. And I think about dads out there, and how many times, whatever the situation is with their child, and that they react as opposed to respond. And I think at the end of the day, if faced with that, like just even, you asked a very powerful question, a question that I love to use as shorthand in my life. Does this serve me? Does feeling this way serve me? Does wanting this serve me? Anytime you're able to interrupt whatever process is going on automatically and ask yourself that question, it really brings you into the now.
Absolutely.
And the idea of being a parent and how we respond to our kids, respond to our kids and not react to our kids, where we can kind of interrupt and really lay it out there in a response, and a well thought out response. based on who we are, as opposed to some automatic response as to based on what we're going through in a reaction. That's a very powerful thing right there.
It is.
Isn't that something that all of us as adults in every situation, whether it's work, whether it's relationship, whatever it is, that would serve us, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. You become more compassionate. Like when you're making these practices a habit, you're becoming more compassionate towards yourself.
Yes.
And that's translating into compassion for other people, including your kids. So when they're having an outburst, you're able to maintain your composure.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's really hard as a parent.
Yes.
You're
no
able,
shit. Yeah. Sometimes that's the hardest because your emotions just roar up and you just you're on the ride.
Yeah, for sure. So it's super important to to have that skill.
Yeah.
To be able to be responsive, because it really, like, when this whole process of meditation and these different practices that I've talked about, and there's many other practices, we come out of that primal, stress response, that brainstem amygdala hijack. There's, different phrases for it. And it puts us back into that prefrontal cortex,
right,
where we're making the good decisions, where our brain is working as a coherent unit.
Yeah.
And we're able to make better decisions.
Yes.
Based on not, emotional reactivity, but on a broader picture and a better understanding with more compassion.
This makes a whole lot of sense. And you're making sense out of something that doesn't make a lot of sense to people sometimes. And to me, I would not ever discourage somebody for trying to open up their spiritual side. Yeah. And you're really making a compelling reason as to why people should do that. And I appreciate it so much. You're so good at explaining this stuff. I know I hate to say that we're moving to the end, but we're moving to the end. Like, it's really, really fast. First and foremost, at some point, will you come on again and we can talk more about this stuff? Maybe go down the rabbit hole a little bit deeper.
I would love to. Yeah. Because I could talk about so much more about, things coming from, actually things starting spiritually and working their way down into our physical body. That's a big component of all of this.
Okay, well, you can't tease us with that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for a second.
Well,
we got a second.
Real quickly, in yoga, we talk about different layers of the body. We have the physical body. We have the pranic body, which is the layer sort of right outside of our...
Is that our aura? Are you talking about aura?
Well, it is part of our aura, yeah, for sure. Prana is like breath. When we talk about pranayama in yoga, it's breath work, right? And then we have our mental body, our wisdom body, and our bliss body, which is at the top, which is the very thinnest part of our being, which is the closest to source, connection, God, whatever terminology you like to use. And it stores a lot of information and our experiences.
Is that our energetic part of us?
It is. It's all part of the energetic.
Okay.
Those outside layers of the physical body are all part of our spiritual body.
Is this the shit that you can take with a special camera? You can take pictures of and look at that?
When we talk about auras, so when we
Yeah.
talk about energy centers, there, you can pinpoint them, and you can find, there are photos that you can, especially, it's a special camera, and I always forget the name of it, but it will actually take picture of your auric field.
Okay.
So
the upper layer is the thinnest one, but it's the one that...
But it contains the most amount of information about, in yoga, we don't call it trauma, we call them impressions. So they, like, think about grooves on a record.
Okay.
Right? For any of us.
On a vinyl, yeah, absolutely.
Vinyl's
it's
coming back.
Don't worry, they know what it is.
My kid's got a huge collection, so I know vinyl is back. Not 8 tracks though.
No, we won't go back to those.
But everything that we experience has to filter through these bodies before it gets to our physical body. So if something is not happening, and this is why the connection to our spirit is so incredibly important, man, woman, child, it doesn't matter. Because if we're not spiritually imbalanced, there are going to be imbalances that filter their way all the way down into our physical body and manifest as it sounds trite and it's very cliche, but dis-ease, right? When we're not in ease in our spiritual, we're not in ease in our
whether
body.
It's behavioral, whether it's physical, whether it's just a disharmony where there's that itch that can't be scratched, and that turns into it's a domino effect that can go through our whole life.
Yep. So
okay,
there's so much to talk about, Mike.
There is so I know, and I appreciate that, and again, I really appreciate you allowing me to utilize our relationship to get you in here to talk about some of this stuff, because you have impacted me so much. The giftings that you have literally changed my life. They've helped me kind of get up off the mat from one of the hardest experiences I've ever gone through when our granddaughter was. 2-year-old granddaughter down at a children's hospital for 4 months, and we're down there with her. And when I came home, I was empty. Yeah. And I was really, really empty in so many ways. I was like that sponge that was so dry. And you and your practice has helped to refill my cup. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for it. And I can't tell you how I wish that I could translate how you have made me feel to so many other guys out there that are dry. They're exactly what you've described. They're not focusing on whether it's the artistic side, if you want to call it that, or the spiritual side. They're just in their brain, and their brain is running shit. Mm-hmm. And they're not looking at that side. And I cannot articulate well enough how important it is when you start working those muscles again, how everything else in life gets better. Balance. And you do such a good, see, just right there. You just summed up in one word what it took me a fucking paragraph to say. I can't thank you enough. And I can't thank you enough for coming here. So as we finish up here, how do people reach out to you, and what it is that you're doing, and what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, email probably is the easiest.
Okay.
And so that is Flourish Sound. So it's FLOURISH sound at gmail.com.
Okay.
And I'm, easiest probably to get a hold of that way. But there is, like I said earlier, the website and the social medias.
Yeah, the social media
stuff as well. So, but email, if you want to get directly in touch with me, is the best way to probably connect. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I look forward to the next time that you have a session, whether it's out in a field somewhere or up in the woods somewhere, something like that, where I can just lay back and listen and let the sound do its work. I cannot wait till the next time that happens. I am super grateful. I was present and fully involved in this conversation. I'm so grateful that you were here today. Thank you so much. It was a gift. I'm super grateful for you.
Thank you, Mike. I feel exactly the same way. I'm so grateful for both you and Candace, and the work that you guys are doing is just unbelievable and so necessary.
Hey man, I just host the podcast. Candy's the one that's changing the world with He Changed It. She's the world changer. I get to do the fun stuff.
It's a team, man. It's so good. And
she's
it's
amazing.
Beautiful. And I'm so grateful for both of you. So thank you.
Well, thank you for recognizing that.
Thank you.
There they go. That's that fast. One of my favorite things in my whole week is having conversations like this. I hope that they're benefiting you. And if you reach out, become part of the community. There's a lot of folks that are in the He Changed It community already that are just lurking around or whatever. Come on out if you want to lurk and learn. If you want to take part and be a part of things, we're just getting started. I've got goosebumps right now thinking about all of the cool things that are coming into this He Changed It movement, this He Changed It universe that is developing right in front of us. This is another episode of heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. Thank you for all your support. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.